Welcome to Boiling Point, the podcast to motivate ever-evolving entrepreneurs and forward-thinking movement pioneers. Our hosts, filmmaker Greg Hemmings and executive coach Dave Vale, are turning up the heat in the world's business communities. Our interviews with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and movement makers are raising the temperature of inspiration. Live from the hottest studio in this quadrant of the universe, here are Dave and Greg.
Here we are, Dave. Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you perfectly. Yes, I'm
Dave,
just listening in.
Just listening in. Dave, Sarah Gander, our incredible guest today, and I are here seeing each other, but we don't see you. You are a black void. I do see your name on the Zoom, but we don't have the pleasure of seeing you. Why is that, Dave?
Well, and Sarah will appreciate this because I am going for my second shot vaccine. So I've got it. I've got it scheduled. I'm driving in. I got Mary Ellen beside me, my wife, who's getting her second one. We don't have a bad reaction to it, but I'm really super pumped to hopefully just have this thing completed.
So Dave, it's the only excuse. It's the only valid excuse when you have a physician on,
yes.
As well as a co-host / husband of a physician. If it's your second vaccination, you can get out of anything. Isn't that right, Sarah?
You won't feel any worse than what you do to yourself with a few beer on the weekend.
Well, then I'll be fine.
And you do that on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. So see there, the doctor told me to be fine. I feel great. So Mary Ellen, we're gonna be fine.
I guess you won't feel any worse than what a few beer wouldn't fix. Then maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
This isn't advice I can give in a pediatrics office, so I'm just going with it.
Well,
Greg, you were just talking about Sarah's microphone and that sort of thing. So, and I had the pleasure, I don't know if you know this, of being on her podcast.
Fantastic. I did not know that. That's exciting.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it generated a number of leads. Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
And we're part of, and I feel like you had a hand in this, Sarah, whether it was directly or indirectly, but we're part of a big program where we're delivering coaching to physicians and leaders in the healthcare industry, primarily physicians. And really excited to be doing that. And I would say Sarah's kind of a bit of a pioneer in, as a physician and using coaching and then being an advocate and actually getting on the podcast and really making it sound super awesome. So thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. I'm glad that the New Brunswick Medical Society is making it a priority because I think that was on deck even before COVID hit, and then their timing couldn't have been better. And you're
Absolutely.
right. I do sing your praises because it was very helpful to me. And then you probably know that I'm doing the coaching training now. So yay.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Through
Awesome.
Roy Road,
We'll be joining.
Oh, I'm doing a program out of the US just because I
cool.
needed something like asynchronous that I just did when I could do it, sort of thing.
Got it.
And so it's the life school, the life coach school, and it's awesome. And so I'm hoping that MBMS will want some peer coaching too. So that might be a little side gig.
100%. And actually that just to get a sense of the demand, that they went live just put a notice out, and within a day it was actually oversubscribed.
Oh my God.
I know. So good, big shout out to them, the New Brunswick Medical Society, and the work they're doing there.
The people who are running it are like authentically and sincerely concerned and want to be helpful, and the design of it was by physicians with physicians, very thoughtful.
Right. Yeah. No, it's very cool. Well, I look forward to, maybe I can start by asking you a quick question about the coaching training you're taking. What's the big, kind of learning in it for you so far?
Well, there's probably a lot of unlearning first because I'm about a third of the way through it, Dave, honestly, because when you're trained as a physician, I'm sure you can appreciate, because most people have gone to the doctor. You go to the doctor with your problem. The doctor kind of hems and haws and mulls over things, does our woo and our voodoo and whatever we do, but we tell you what to do, and then we get mad when you don't do it. And that's not really what coaching is.
Coaching is a little different.
It sounds like parenting a little bit too, Sarah.
Yeah, well, coaching has helped my parenting a lot because it's like, well, what do you think would make you feel the best? So that was the beauty of coaching, is that you learn, like, in a nutshell, when people ask me like, what's your one liner? I say, coaching is learning how to find the answers within yourself.
Yeah, as a recipient of it, for sure.
Yeah, and a good
100%.
coach, I think, tees you up to then be able to like self-coach later, or else it wouldn't be called coaching, it would be called codependence.
Nice.
Yes. Hey, geez, that's a good one.
Sarah, you got to write that one down. Like that's that's got to be one of the slogans for your future coaching career.
I'm
Just like
using that.
straight
I'm
up, right on
using
the website.
Yeah, so I had to unlearn a lot of things, because my temptation when I'm doing the practice is sort of like, have you tried this? Have you tried this? What about this? Why don't you try this? As opposed to, well,
Yeah.
how do you want to feel?
That's the and that's a big differentiator between a consultant, right? A consultant is there. You're hiring a consultant to say, hey, have you tried this? Or you should do that. Big difference. And it's funny, anything I know about coaching is from hanging out with Dave many, many, many years ago when we made our first film together about coaching. And I just remember, Dave, when we were up in somewhere in BC, Trail BC, and some of your colleagues were bringing out hats, like physical hats, and each hat had a different word on it. One was coaching, one was consulting, one was I can't remember. You would remember, Dave, what the other ones were.
Probably like advising.
Advising, yeah, mentoring, and they all had a role. But the point of the exercise was saying that these aren't coaching. Like, coaching is this, but there's a role for all of them. And as a coach, you can actually put those other hats on, but as long as your coachee knows what's going on, it's so I found that really, really quite profound. But as a doctor, you're a consultant, so you're trying
and not
to shift.
A friend, though. Like, neither role is a friend per se. Like, that was the other thing, Dave, was about like unlearning. Well, the trainers call it like jumping in the pool with people. So like, Greg, if you came to me and you were like, oh my gosh, this, that, and the other thing, and like, the kids are driving me crazy. So I could jump in the pool with you as a friend and be like, I know my kids are the same. They do that too, but that's not helpful, because then we're just kind of like, going up the rungs of the ladder together. But if I say, oh, okay, well, why is that a problem? And then help you explore it, then I'm staying out of the pool. It's like, is it a problem? Is it a problem that, your 2-year-old wants to sleep in the same bed as you every night? Like, that's my pediatric cat, is that a problem? And people sometimes are like, actually, no, it's fine. I love it.
Actually, I love it.
Then whose problem is it? Is it my problem? Because
it's my doctor's problem.
Yeah. It's like, well, then maybe they should stop worrying about it, but anyway, so it's funny, because I think it's going to make me a better doctor too, because 80% of our practice now is like mental health. And so if we can't coach people to be their own champions, then people are just, you see them kind of fall away, and they're just not the captain of their own life at all. And so it's kind of trying to empower people too, is like, well, how do you want to feel? Well, I want to feel like when I go into that school meeting for my kid, that I know what I'm talking about and I'm there as their advocate. Okay, well then, what do we have to think to do that?
Sarah, let's back up a little bit. We know that you're a pediatrician, and you get to help these amazing little humans, through a whole bunch of different areas of their health journey. And but you're also deeply involved with other community efforts, including my understanding of what how you work with different women with addictions or people in general, I suppose, but because everything connects to the kid. If there's adult issues, that's impacting the welfare of children. But let's rewind a little bit to that, because it's the exciting thing here is you're a person that is building a career with a whole bunch of different branches, which is really cool, because it's a choice to do that. You can stay in your lane only, or you can, go off in a couple of different paths, all in the same direction. And I think that's why I'm excited to hear from you today.
Oh, well, thanks, Greg. I take it as a compliment when people tell me I'm not staying in my own lane. So I'm sure that I get to decide how I think about that because maybe some people are like, why can't you just stay in your own lane?
Because it's boring. Listen, when I'm driving, I gotta in winter, I gotta do donuts. Anytime I see like a parking lot, I'm getting off the road. I'm gonna do a few donuts, get right back on the road, and I'm still going the right direction. So
Yeah, well, so the latest donut is that we have a nonprofit that we got our nonprofit status in over COVID, and that's New Brunswick Social Pediatrics Incorporated, which is basically our entity to try to kind of move the needle on intergenerational poverty in St. John and in New Brunswick is our commitment. We're still working on our full strategic plan. We're building our board, which is kind of an awesome motley crew of like people who are from different sectors and mainly people who are totally out of my lane, not even on the same road, in a different on the highway, no, and trying to learn, what I don't know.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
And yeah, and I know you as a friend, so I kind of know the answer because you're interested in life and interested in adventures. But what led you to kind of step out a little bit further to kind of make some impact in the community through nonprofits and anti-poverty initiatives, etc.?
Well, I mean, as a pediatrician, you sort of start out nervous to do your job like anybody, right? Like you come out of training and you're in that sort of steep learning curve of the first year or two. And the stress of that is one thing because you're afraid you're going to make a mistake and you're afraid you're going to, I don't know, give somebody the wrong medication or do something like that. And then I quickly realized that actually the stress for me was that I wasn't, with the training that I had with medicine the way it is, wasn't actually going to do the good and the impact that I wanted with that training. And not to say that kind of doing that work doesn't make a difference, but what I was seeing in my practice was more and more and more kids who were coming out of trauma and toxic stress and poverty. And then I was on the receiving end of that generation of like kids who were impacted by things like Donnie Snook in the South End. And like, I think we should just speak truth to that stuff. Like there's some terrible things that's happened in our community. And like, if there was ever a time in Canada to start openly talking about terrible things, like now's the time. And so I think it was about openly talking about the terrible things and the inequity and sort of saying, okay, do we have a plan for this? What are we going to do about this? And there's lots of wonderful people in St. John who've been working on this for far longer than I have. But where I saw a gap was how is the medical and the healthcare community starting to own their piece of this and really kind of give back. And so a few of like-minded people just said, well, we think that means that we get our butts out of our offices and into the community and meet people where they are, because we knew that we weren't getting the reach of the people that really needed to see us. And so it was time to be flexible, be nimble. And sometimes that meant like clinics in Charlotte County, clinics in Grand Manan, clinics in Sussex. But it also meant like, I'm going to go to the school and see that family because they're never going to take the 2 buses to come see me at the hospital with the $14 of parking or the pack a lunch or the whatever. It's just not going to happen in February with 3 kids and blah, blah, blah. So it was more like, is it time? It's time to take the very traditional boxed in medical model and say, how does that fit into St. John? And how do we become flexible to meet the needs of St. John? And so that's where some of the ideas came from. And that's what you were talking about with the piece around people who use drugs. People who use drugs have babies, and they do it actually quite a bit. And when you think about breaking cycles of intergenerational poverty, basically we're seeing babies born exposed to drugs and alcohol, families who have had like exponential trauma in their lives. So like we have had a tradition of punishing those people. How do we move to a place where we support these people? My belief and my value is that if you support people, then that's the road to better outcomes. That's the road to better communities. And so that's what we're doing.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. And I'm gonna I want to learn more about the nonprofit, Sarah, and I think it's awesome. I got to jump here in a second. There's a big lineup actually to get into.
Oh man, it's like you're going to a rock concert, man.
It's kind of like that, except everyone's everyone's socially distanced and wearing masks, so it's a little bit different. But I was just gonna say, I just it's so important to that approach of meeting people where they're at, and good for you, Sarah. And I agree, like it's so like we got, when you say this is the time we should be talking about having those tough conversations, and it feels like those conversations are starting to happen because we can't turn a blind eye to stuff. And I'm thinking about everything we're learning about the treatment of Indigenous people, and it's really caused me to have some, I think, really interesting conversations, correspondence with my Indigenous friends to stuff I just wasn't aware of, and I just wish we had the vehicles or the ability to have these conversations earlier, but I'm just happy they're happening now and not in 10 years. So I think that is super awesome. Keep doing good work, Sarah. I'll let you guys,
Thanks, Dave.
I'll let you know if it's more than how many beers I'll need after this.
Okay. Good luck, Dave. And Sarah and I will keep going.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Take care.
See you guys.
Enjoy it. Take a picture. See ya. See, it is rare that halfway through one of us has to go. Actually, it's never happened before, but I think it's a good enough excuse.
It's okay. I think it keeps it real. It doesn't mean, well, I don't know. It makes the podcast like historic, not timeless. Because people are like, he's going for a what?
A what?
It's like, oh yeah, no, remember 2021 when everybody wanted vaccines really, really bad?
Oh, I remember that. And it's funny. That kind of does relate to what he just said about the conversations we're having right now, how we wish we had it when we were younger, like around our First Nations issues, around residential schools. Like you and I went to an education where we didn't really know much about. We weren't taught about that sort of trauma. We learned it, on our own as adults, and but our kids are learning about it right now, which is incredible, right? So,
oh my gosh, Steve sent me this picture because they were up at the golf course having lunch. I was away. I forget where I was now. I was just like not away, but I was like in Fredericton or something. And he's like, look what Eddie wrote. So Eddie's my 8-year-old, right? And so he has doodled on the paper menu, Black Lives Matter, Indigenous Lives Matter, and LGBTQ. Like he had a whole bunch of letters, God love him, but like LGBTQ lives matter. And I like Greg. I mean, we talk about these things because we're a family that talks, but about everything. Yeah. But I was like, what does he even know about like what? And then it's school. It's us, but it's school too. Yeah. Like they're reading, they're doing projects, they're talking about it. When they discovered the unmarked graves of the 215 children in Kamloops, I kind of talked to him about it because I knew they would talk about it at school, and I wanted to kind of give him a heads up. And he, he got super teary, and he was like, "I don't understand," and and so then it's like, he's like, actually, what he said, Greg, was, "I don't want to talk about it."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I don't want to talk about it either, but this is our obligation to be uncomfortable with this, because it's so awful that we can't afford to.
We can't let it happen again. And I think that's the whole point. Yeah. And what you're saying about, the status quo of punishing people in poverty and with addiction, the very fact that we're having this conversation right now, as we get educated ourselves in our own adult journey, wouldn't it be great if Eddie and Kaya and Willow, like that's not going to be an issue in their generation? I don't know if that's the case, but wouldn't that be nice if that experience of empathy and not judgment is taught at a very young age? And it starts with adults like us having podcasts like this to inspire change in the education system, or how parents talk to their kids. Like you just said, it's okay to get uncomfortable and talk about really crazy stuff to our kids,
Yeah. Well, my favorite is a friend of mine in BC, Chris Locke. She's a pediatrician out there, and she just has like this genuine sort of wisdom about her. Because when you get angry about these things, and like in our community, there's a few things to be angry about, and you feel like calling people out, and that's such like an offensive, like calling people out. And she likes to talk about, but what if we flip that and we talked about like calling people in, that like we're all in a process of learning. So like I'm calling you in to have this conversation with me because I have things to learn, lots to learn. I have things to share. Let's hold space for each other and have that compassion. So,
But
so
that's
we
a
are
skill
all
set
moving
that
in that
needs
same direction.
it needs to be learned, and it's really cool because if you're going, as you're going through your coaching training, you're going to be learning a lot about that, about creating space and holding space for people, right? As a life coach, and
Well, that's the pool part, right? Like if somebody says like, oh, like they're doing something that I don't agree with, how do you stay neutral, right? But you have to, because that's not what this is about.
yeah, and it's funny. Maybe actually, last week's Boiling Point podcast was with Lily Lynch from Sankara Market, and Lily.
I don't know.
Oh, listen to this episode. It's
Okay.
really good. Oh, it's excellent. But anyway, Lily taught me about calling in really well.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. So I didn't mean
No,
to.
no, but it was in a
I
really
just
neat way.
re-emphasized your point, Lily, if you listen to this.
Yeah, well,
Thank
you should just make a point of listening to we didn't go deep into this concept. It was previous to the episode that we talked about it, but we mentioned it a little bit. But I was asked to speak at a UNB TME event, digital event, and it was only a few months ago. And they asked me, one of the questions was, how do you get invited to be on stages like TEDx's or whatever? And my answer was, just say yes. Every time you have a chance to speak, say yes, just to practice, whether it's to a high school or to just keep saying yes. And she was on that meeting, and she sent me a note later and she goes, Greg, that's awesome. But the problem with that is it's not everybody is being asked. People that look like me, that are
and me,
white and loud and, doing interesting things that once you get a little bit of media attention, for example, it keeps on going, because it's the way journalism works too. And you're looking for a story, they call Sarah. Looking for a story, it's kind of how it works. So she was just saying, it's maybe we should talk as a society about how do we step aside when we're asked to come in and open space for other people to show up. Right. I was like, that is so good, because it's so important for me to realize that, I can suck all the oxygen out of the air, no problem. But, and it doesn't matter to my career, but it could be the massive benefit for somebody else who's struggling or not known, or somebody that doesn't look like me.
Well, so anyway, responsibility as an ally to sort of say, it doesn't thank you very much. I'm going to offer you, and like you almost like, I'm looking for the better word than this, but sort of like vouch for this person. So then we use our power, our privilege, our collateral to lift somebody else up into that space. So then they can, that's what I think part of that allyship is. Like, how do I use the power that I have to make space for somebody else?
It's all connected. Everything we've had on this conversation from the beginning, it's all connected to what you're doing and where you're going. And I think it's so awesome that you're doing. I didn't know that you're jumping into coaching in a more official.
Well, it's
approach.
so I can work from Mexico, Greg. Let's get real. See, it all sounds
because
so
Dave Matthews will be playing there on the beach again, so will Fish, and so and
so did I buy Dave Matthews
down
tickets?
there.
I did not buy Dave Matthews tickets. Did I buy Fish tickets? Yes, sir, I did.
Did you really?
Mexico 2022.
Oh shit! Should I be getting tickets?
Good
Yes.
luck.
They're probably sold out.
You can stay in our room.
Okay, thank you. I'm coming. I just got to work on Jess. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I love it. Well, Sarah, typically we want people to know how to get a hold of our guests. What's the best way for people to follow what you're doing and to be in touch for any connection?
So we have a website. It's nbsocialpediatrics.com. On there, you'll find a lot of what we're doing, because we have a whole research program, which is connected with Horizon Health, because that's where I work. And then there's our whole clinical program, which we're opening our new center on Princess Street, the old laundromat for the Johners out there on Princess Street. That will open in 2 weeks. And then we have our nonprofit, which is sort of the website under construction piece, but all of our contact is there. The program for women who face addiction and their babies is called the Parent-Child Assistance Program. All the info is there. And anything else, all the wonderful students that we work with, that it's a very, very, very much a team. I think we have 9 students this summer.
Awesome.
We have something like 7 employees, but we partner with lots of people. We have MBA students. It's awesome. There was no business for a doctor to open a nonprofit. thank God I have people doing budgets and things like that. So I built a pretty awesome team.
You
But it's
are
all for St. John and New Brunswickers, and it's awesome.
well. Thank you, Sarah, for being such an inspiration. And please, let's see each other more this summer because our families need to get together again.
We would love that. We would love that, Greg. Thanks very much for having me.
Awesome, Sarah. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Boiling Point. Remember to rate and subscribe to us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at Boiling Point Pod. To see more from Dave Vale, check out leadershipunleashed.ca or visioncoachinginc.com, and on Twitter at Dave_Vale. And to catch up with Greg, visit hemmingshouse.com and at Greg Hemmings on Twitter. Thanks for listening, and remember, keep that pot boiling.